our native students, they actually have a pull-out seminar for this, but I don't have the capacity to do that for our Latinx bilingual folks, so they end up kind of marching through a space where white people are doing this work. They're required to do it too, but it's not at a level that I think would be. I would say to be exemplary. That's what our program would have, the means through which affinity groups could be doing that work, and we don't have the support or capacity for affinity groups to be doing that work. So marginalized folks end up. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think it's kind of another one of those common structural messes that they get to sit and listen to white people process.
Yeah. This is focused on the learning that's happening within the program. So not out in the field, but in the classroom here.
Probably here. I'm trying to decode this one. Classroom-based learning is intentionally organized to allow teaching to share. Oh, no, that's accurate. Yeah, okay. I had to read it again. I was like, where, share, where? But no, the faculty are diverse. Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
So are you taking this tool someplace where it wouldn't even be legible?
What do you mean as far as legible?
I think some of the things you're asking would be outside the scope of thinking for some of the ed programs.
Agreed.
Around the state. So it makes this okay. I'm just curious if they could decode this, right? So would it be legible in that way? And then could they decode it and apply it to the systems that they have in operation with any kind of degree of accuracy? Because as I put this program over here in this, you could put a different rubric up here, and I wouldn't put them there.
Right.
Put this program there. So it's not.
That's partly what
But
my
the
study
scale
is
of
aiming
anybody
to look
else
at.
self-assessing, I guess is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's what I'm kind of looking at, because I know how I was prepared and scoring how my program would not score as you're describing. So, and I think it's easy for you to look at it because you're doing the work. And it's easy for you to talk about it, and that's apparent, and it will be apparent, I think, in my analysis.
Okay. Okay, so equitable field placement. Oh, field placements are a nightmare. Privileges. We are just all over the map in field placements. We cannot be strategic enough with our field placements, in particular at the secondary level. At the secondary level, people are getting endorsements in specific areas, and so we have to, and we're not, and I don't think they could be as honed as they want to in Portland either, but because of the number of districts and classrooms we have to work with, we can't. We hit a point where we can't turn down a field placement because it's the only opportunity for a placement for secondary physics. We can almost be assured that the practice happening in the secondary classrooms is not equitable teaching practices. We have a handful of really good secondary placements where through observation, through instruction, they teach with us. We teach with them. where I do know that they are classrooms that are very engaged in critical pedagogy and cultural, and is that a familiar term? Critical? Mm-hmm. Okay. And culturally responsive teaching. Do courageous conversations as part of their curriculum. Like there's some ways, there's some signals that can allow me to know that. And I always place our students of color in those classrooms. I feel like it's really critical that we don't lose them during student teaching, and we don't lose them in the process. So I would say at the secondary level, and I will even misplace a student content-wise into one of those classrooms for a term of their field placement, so that they have one nurturing experience in the field with a colleague. Sometimes they're white, sometimes they're a person of color. But it's not equitable even how I make those placements. If that was, well, it depends on what the term equitable means. It's not randomized, or it's very targeted placements for students of color. But across the board, we have to be over here. Most of the field placements involve direct instruction, and this is the mess for us. And in the discourse of the state, because I spend a lot of time in policy discussions at the state level, from the field, they feel that we're the mess, right? That if they could just get them out of these courses more and more into ongoing mentoring, they would be so much more successful in their first year of teaching and so much more satisfied, because they wouldn't have had all of these courses of irrelevant content misdirecting their thinking. But the field placements, the majority of them for elementary are DI. The majority of them for elementary are using PBIS in really, really problematic and punitive ways that are very culturally bound, and very ableist and highly gendered, right? So they're punishing little boys. They're punishing or setting up conditions, and that's by far the majority. And so we move students around. We have a little bit more leverage in elementary placements to move students around because everybody's elementary endorsed. At the secondary level, the instruction is heavily lecture-based. And in fact, they're trying to train secondary kids in things like Cornell notes and lecture-based learning. And that's not at all my culture. It's not at all the methodology that we do. So our field placements do not match our instruction, which is why I try to find, because this is a fail. I try to find ways to work in supportive ways with all of our districts. I do PD for them and sit on their curriculum adoption committees and things like that, to find spaces where there can be some coherence, so that we're not a complete paradigm flip. But I don't know, frankly, how we or Lewis and Clark or UW, where they do their levels of equity inclusion, how, if you fundamentally recognize that schools and systems themselves are reproducing the inequity, they're not refereeing it, which is what I think they believe, largely, but they're actually reproducing it with the systems. You're not going to have good field placements. It's just not going to match. So I don't have a solution for it. We've had conversations about having a university, high school, university, to do it at that level, but that would take a kind of funding commitment that we don't have. So that's where field placement is. Yes,
it would be amazing if it could happen. All right. This last piece is focused specifically on the educators within the program.
The faculty. Okay.